Hey guys, welcome back to Mr. Fincham's Fireside Follow-Alongs. Today, we're going to be continuing on with New Beginnings. Now, where we left off, John Smith was saved by Pocahontas, right? And the settlers were having a really rough time, not being able to plant food because of the soil. Their drinking water got salt water in it. They were so weak that they could not hunt or fish. Some of the Native American tribes were surrounding their camp, not allowing them to go and get food, right? So they had a lot of problems. But the ships kept coming. They kept dropping Europeans off, right? And then this man here, Royal Governor Lord Delaware, where Delaware is named after, arrives in Jamestown, and he kind of takes over. And he says, you know what, there's no more of this, oh, I'm a gentleman type thing, and I'm not going to work. All hands on deck. If we want to survive, if we want to get through this, all of us are going to have to put in work. It's just that simple, right? So that was kind of where we left off. Before we continue on with our reading, first let's go over the questions on the ELA text or the ELA questions and tasks section. And the first one is the reading and writing task. 50 acres of land is the equivalent to 66 football fields. That's huge. If you were offered 50 acres of land to move somewhere with challenges, would you take it? What would you take with you to help you survive? If you would not take it, why? So I'm the kind of person that I would like at some point in my life to own land, to own some land. And 50 acres of it is a good piece of land. Okay, let's be real. 66 football fields of land and you own it, that's massive. But there's challenges. Big challenges. Maybe it's in the soil, maybe it's with the wildlife. I don't know, but would you take it? What would you take with you to help you survive? And keep in mind, once you get this land, you have to build a house on it, right? You have to be able to sustain yourself with water and food. So even though it seems like a lot of land, is it worth the work? Is it worth the danger? Okay, tell me why or why not if you would take it. And the text to self-connection. According to page 117, why did the Native Americans turn on the settlers? Why did the attack turn into a massacre, or an attack in which so many people on each side died? Or on one side died, one side. So why did the Native Americans turn on the settlers? So remember, they were being very friendly at first. And then the attack turned into a massacre, just a complete decimation, as we'll read about. Why did so many people on one side die? And the extension. How did John Rolfe and Pocahontas help attract new settlers to the colony? All right, so those are the ones you want to keep in mind as we read, and we are going to start off today on page 114. Brown gold. By now, everyone knew that no gold or silver was to be found in the Virginia colony. The colonists needed to find some other ways to make money. One of the settlers, John Rolfe, had an idea. Smoking tobacco had become popular in Europe. Tobacco grew wild in the Virginia colony, but it tasted harsh and bitter. Rolfe began experimenting with tobacco plants. After many tries, Rolfe grew a plant that had a sweet taste. In 1614, he sent the first of the new tobacco to England. The people loved it. Jamestown had a future. By 1616, the colony was sending more than 2,000 pounds of tobacco to Europe. Everyone rushed to grow tobacco. Many colonists stopped growing food crops to plant all their land with tobacco. They even planted it along the streets of the town. The governor insisted that every colonist grow at least some corn. Otherwise, the colony would grow hungry. At least the colonists had a way to make money. For the first time, They were working hard. Maybe the colony would make it, after all. So tobacco farming made the colony profitable. So in other words, they found this plant that everyone wants. So they grow it as much as they can and sell it. Right? And here's a picture of them kind of harvesting it. Now we're going to go to page 115. John Rolfe and Pocahontas. Because of tobacco, John Rolfe became one of the most famous colonists. He is also remembered for another reason. He married Pocahontas, daughter of the Powhatan chief. One day, Pocahontas was visiting friends when the settlers kidnapped her. The Powhatan and the settlers were not getting along. The colonists hoped to trade Pocahontas for peace with the Indians. So, things are not going very smoothly. We've talked about this earlier. The Native Americans kind of feel like the Europeans are just invading their land, destroying their land, taking all of their food, just kind of encroaching, right? So they don't take kindly to that. I don't think anybody would. So the colonists kidnapped Pocahontas and said, look, we'll give her back to you if we can just have peace. We'll find out if that was a good idea or not. Chief Powhatan did not reply to this offer for 3 months. During this time, the colonists treated Pocahontas well. She learned English. She learned the manners of a proper Englishwoman. She became a Christian and was given the name of Rebecca. She felt at home with the settlers. Next paragraph. Pocahontas met the tobacco planter John Rolfe. The two fell in love. Rolfe wrote a letter to the governor asking to marry her. Pocahontas also asked Powhatan. Both men agreed. The wedding was held in April 1614 in the church in Jamestown. Pocahontas' father did not come, but her uncle, an important chief, came to the ceremony. So here's the wedding of Pocahontas and John Rolfe. Voices from America. It is Pocahontas to whom my hearty and best thoughts are, and have been a long time. John Rolfe in a letter to the governor. So now let's go to page 216. The Peace of Pocahontas, or 116, I'm sorry. Rolfe and Pocahontas had a baby boy, Thomas. The young family went to England on a visit. They went to attract new settlers to the colony and to help tobacco sales. People became very interested in Pocahontas. She was known as Lady Rebecca. King James I and Queen Anne received her. She had her portrait painted. Pocahontas became popular in London society. So here's a painting of her, Pocahontas in English clothes. While in England, Pocahontas became ill. Just as the young family was ready to return to Virginia in 1617, Pocahontas died. She was only 22. John Rolfe, alone and sad, returned to Virginia. Thomas stayed with relatives in England and went to school there. When he was a young man, Thomas returned to Virginia. Now we're going to go to 217. 117, sorry guys, I don't know why I keep saying 200. Page 117. Massacre. So for those of you who don't know the word, a massacre is just an event that happens where people are killed. Usually it's one-sided. A lot of people die. That's a massacre. Pocahontas and John Rolfe's marriage helped keep the peace for a while. Chief Powhatan made sure of that. Then, in 1618, Powhatan died. His brother became the new leader of the Powhatan people. This new leader did not like or trust the English. He planned to get rid of the settlers once and for all. He took his time to prepare. He wanted to take the settlers by surprise. So one thing that they do in the military is, if you are going to try to take out an enemy, you don't want them to know it's coming. You want to surprise them so they don't have time to prepare and get their defenses set. Right? After years of peace, the colonists felt safe. They stopped carrying guns everywhere. They traded with the Indians. Peace seemed to rule the day. Then in March 1622, the Powhatan chief led a group to Jamestown. They came to trade furs and corn for English goods. At least, this is what the settlers thought. Suddenly, the Native Americans turned on the settlers. They killed about 350 colonists, roughly a third of the total. One of them was John Rolfe. And here is a picture or a drawing of the attack. So they pretended to be at peace, and then they attacked. 118. The Native Americans are defeated. The massacre of 1622 was another setback for Jamestown. It also marked the beginning of the end for the Native Americans. The colonists armed themselves. They started regular attacks on the Indians. They destroyed crops and burned Indian villages. Native Americans' arrows were no match for English guns, and many Indians were killed. They learned that the colonists could not be beaten. Here's another image of the war. After the massacre, the colonists began to attack the Indians. Voice from America. We may now be right of war in law of nations invade the country and destroy them who sought to destroy us. So, in other words, what he's saying is, since the Indians did a sneak attack on us, now we have every right to go and attack them. And just like with Cortez and Montezuma, the Europeans here have an advantage. Their technology, their weapons, right? Most Native Americans only had bow and arrows, hatchets, tomahawks. They didn't have very many weapons made of steel, or they didn't have guns the way that we did, or the Europeans did. So page 119. The Virginia colony grows. Few people in England wanted to move to the Virginia colony in its early years. They had heard of the sickness, the unfriendly Indians, and the starvation. However, as time passed, they saw how successful growing tobacco was. Settlers were becoming rich. Also, the danger of Indian attack was fading. Leaders of the colony wanted more settlers, so they offered 50 acres of land in the colony to anyone who would pay for the trip. And for each additional person you brought, you got another 50 acres. A person with some money could quickly put together a large piece of land. For many, this was a great opportunity. So this goes back to our question. If somebody offers you 50 acres of land, but it has challenges. Remember, the challenges are there's still angry and unfriendly Indians out there, right? It's not easy to grow crops on this land. You don't know about the wilderness, the animals, right? So there is challenges. Do you take the offer? Last paragraph. The Virginia colony began to attract more settlers. In 1619, more than 1,000 settlers came to Virginia. Another 3,500 people arrived over the next 3 years. Many were hard-working people. Some were beggars. Others were teenaged orphans. All of them hoped to make a better life for themselves. So, that's kind of the story in a nutshell. Of course, the story goes way deeper and there's way more to it than what we read, but we are going to stop there for today. And before we sign off, I'm going to reread the ELA questions and tasks for you. So the reading and writing task. 50 acres of land is the equivalent to 66 football fields. That's huge. If you were offered 50 acres of land to move somewhere with challenges, would you take it? What would you take with you to help you survive? If you would not take it, why? The text to self-connection. According to page 117, why did the Native Americans turn on the settlers? Why did the attack turn into a massacre, or an attack in which so many people on one side died? And the extension. How did John Rolfe and Pocahontas help attract new settlers to the colony? As always, feel free to write me an email or write me on Seesaw. Leave comments in the section below. I want to know what you guys think, what your opinions are. Thank you for following along with me. I appreciate you guys a lot. Thank you for staying tough and fighting through these challenges of this very odd year. I know it hasn't been easy, but I noticed those of you who have not given up during this time, and that's the right way to go about it. So thank you. That's it for me, guys. I will talk to you soon. Until next time.